Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and my co-host is Austin Chadwick. And today we've got a topic from Austin and he's going to kind of lead the way on this. But it's kind of leadership styles in Top Gun. It's the new movie, right? Not the old one. Is that right?
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
all right. Well, so yeah, what are you thinking there? And teaming and styles, and then maybe we can have a fun conversation.
Yeah. And yeah, so the context a little bit is me and my wife watched Top Gun Maverick, which is the newer one. I haven't seen the old one in a really long time. And we haven't seen a lot of contemporary movies, but we saw that one and we really enjoyed it for one. And then what stood out to me, it kind of like hit me as I was watching it a little bit, but then the days after, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I noticed three different leadership or teaming styles in the movie, and I felt like it really applied to teams, teaming, mobbing, ensembling quite a bit. And yeah, so I guess without further ado, I'll just kind of jump in to the styles I saw. I mean, you don't need to know a lot about Top Gun, but if you do, it'll add a lot more meat to what we're going to say today or talk about. But the basic idea is a team of pilots had to do an impossible mission, and they're training before they do their mission. And it's a bunch of pilots and their co-pilots with a bunch of planes going into this very difficult mission where they have to destroy something and get out of there without losing their lives, kind of thing. And I noticed three different styles in it. And I felt like you see a lot in teams and kind of the corporate software development, product development world. And the first one, so I guess the three styles are off the three different people in the film, which was Maverick, of course, because the movie's about Warlock, who is one of kind of the trainers, and then Iceman. And so I guess I'll start with Iceman, and this is kind of how I see you, Chris. You're often the Iceman in our organization. And so he in this movie, so in the first movie he was more of like a pilot, but in this movie he was like a C-suite person, like very high up in the chain. And he had as far as teaming and leadership style, he wasn't like super involved moment to moment as the team was preparing for this mission, but he was kind of mentoring or coaching the coaches and kind of pulling strings, kind of in the background. And I think I've heard the way Woody put it before, so to speak, stacking the deck, right? And so he had a strong opinion about how the mission should be done, and he kind of thought it should be done in an unorthodox way, if I can say the word. And it was very countercultural, and so he kind of put someone in place to help it go that way and supported this person, even though like he was getting scrutiny from the rest of the organization. And so so I feel like successful teams often have this position for success, someone kind
Yeah.
of supporting it from the higher levels. And I don't know, have you seen this pattern before, Chris?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there's there definitely I think you might have like a grassroots movement, right? And a bubble, and often those sorts of things can get squashed for one reason or another. And so I think, typically there has to be, somebody that may be unseen even, that is just supporting the continued existence of some initiative along those lines. And so, I can see a lot of possibilities to that. And so that might be somebody higher up that maybe supports lean or agile or whatever in an organization that maybe doesn't have a lot of agreement from their peers, right? And then supporting it and allowing it to grow, or those sorts of things. I think fostering the diffusion of innovation without introducing the fear of following a path, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I think you saw it with the early origin of mobbing that you were involved with, right? There was someone in power making sure it wasn't squashed, right?
Yep.
And also kind of that mentoring aspect. Like there's one point in the film where Iceman was mentoring Maverick when Maverick was like at the point of woe and giving up, right? And so And I remember, having you or people like that to go to who are kind of supporting it from a higher level, but also to give guidance when the times are tough, right? They're not actively working with the team every day or even actively like, holding training seminars necessarily or anything, but just there to kind of keep things going and let it getting stopped from getting squashed. Yeah, and then the other one that occurred to me was one of the kind of trainers who was like an experienced pilot. His call name was Warlock in the movie, and this really resonated with me, kind of from like a training from the back of the room style. So they would he would do active training, he would do active guidance. He wasn't like high up in the chain or anything. So daily involved with the team, but more from like a teaching perspective. And then the team would go and do, right? And so they would go practice the mission or go do the mission. And so Warlock wasn't flying with them in their training sessions or flying with them in the actual mission. But, so it reminds me of how I've seen some people's styles, and some I think kind of camp out more with this with their teaming and mobbing, is that they won't actively maybe do the work, like, actively navigate as much or that kind of thing. But they play a critical role in helping the people doing the work do the work better, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a good mix with Iceman, and I don't know. Have you seen any flavors of that lately in your wandering about the mobs?
Yeah. So first I'll ask,
Yeah.
was Warlock was Warlock providing real-time feedback when watching a mission happen, or was Warlock only giving like classes related information? Because I think that's an important point.
Yeah, and people who know the movie well might correct me here on this one because I've only seen it once. But my memory is it's almost like he was radioed in, so like during the mission or during the training sessions where they're flying the planes, he was radioed in and so could talk to the pilots, right?
Yeah.
But wasn't like flying next to them or flying in front of them kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of radioed in and then active teaching during the like classroom sessions, so to speak.
Yeah. So that might be just like bringing trainings into an organization, or more classroom style stuff. I think also if there's like maybe a lost practice or something due to turnover or something like that, like everybody might get together and teach, or a piece of information that's infrequently used but necessary, then there might be something like a video on it created. Maybe that documentation that slowly goes stale, like that sort of stuff ends up being a little bit in that place. But then there's definitely like in the mobbing sessions, because I think there's like the maybe like salmon style coaching, right? The mobbing coaching versus being in and out of context. So if I drop into a mob, I might see some behaviors and be like, hey, just as a reminder, this is a thing that could be useful in this scenario. So like the soft sell of an idea, so I think about like soft selling ideas and like minimal context intervention. It's kind of a hard thing to master and can be frustrating to people if the wrong information is offered, because if you drop in and have no context and volunteer a suggestion, that can be offensive to people. And so being good at having little context but being asked for help, and then building up only a minimal amount of context to provide a non-offensive useful piece of feedback. That might be maybe where my head's taking me with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, he definitely gave feedback all throughout to the team and even live on the fly. So it's almost like when you kind of buzz by a team, that could be like the analogy of radioing in and saying like, hey, you guys are about to do a thing. Remember this, please.
You don't want to be the team seagull, right? Where you fly over and poop all over everything.
Exactly.
So there's a fine line between being a seagull and or a pigeon, I guess, or whatever, or um, versus like actually being helpful. And I think, I've definitely had failures in that area before, and then I've had successes. And I think over the years, I think it's kind of like almost an art, really, of like, less of a science of saying like, okay, I think I have enough information to chime in now, but not taking up too much time building context.
Yeah, and I think I've seen you do that. I've seen you do the Iceman. I've seen you do the Warlock, and so you've been Val Kilmer before,
There you go. Hey, all right.
and when you've done the Warlock thing, it's kind of like that short term coaching or just that short term feedback. And we've talked about it before too, like, oh yeah, this was the impact of when you said this or that, and then left, because if I was on the team after. And so it's good for even Warlocks to get their feedback right from from their style. So that's good. Yeah, and I think just kind of going to the last style, the Maverick style. Yeah, a lot of points here. In that, you look at the journey, if I'm remembering the movie correctly, right, is he was very experienced, and his whole career they were trying to push him into high-level Iceman or Warlock styles, training and teaching and leadership, but it just never really seemed to fit, at least as the story plot line goes. And he was actually pretty good at it. Like, he was kind of the Warlock teaching from the back of the room style for a lot of the movie. But spoiler alert, spoiler alert, for at least not like the final scenes in the movie, but for part of it, he kind of goes off book and just joins the team. And a lot of really cool things happened from it. And so I think kind of what happened was, the Warlocks and the Icemen were setting certain objectives that the team was unable to hit, right? So maybe a corollary to software engineering was like, hey, you're in legacy code and it feels impossible. Write some unit tests, you know what I mean? And the team was just unable to hit to the objectives, right? And so what he did, I think before they like killed the mission or fired him or something, is he just proved that it could be done. So he went in there, did the mission, at least the mission that they couldn't, the part of the mission they couldn't do. And from then on, it was like, okay, this is possible. Like, you can unit test this code, in like the software example. Or in the mission, it was like, oh, this mission, you could navigate this course and get to this spot on the map before time ran out.
Yeah.
And so, I thought that was one real key part of it, is sometimes you need a teaming or leadership style to show what's possible, because it's just the team just doesn't know, or thinks it's impossible. And so by demonstrating, like, look, here's this really nasty piece of code, let me navigate for a while and show you exactly how you can get this under test. So I thought that was one really cool piece of it. Demonstrating what good looks like. There were moments in the film where he was self-sacrificial for the good of the team, and would teach them things while they were doing it. And I guess for Maverick himself, it was like a natural lean to kind of be in that role. Have you any thoughts on Maverick? Have you been Maverick?
Well, I've definitely seen the situation of like, I don't know if this is possible,
right.
and it's like, oh no, it absolutely is. Like, here, there's a fine line there between giving the solution away, right? So I think in the example of the movie, you have something where he can't give them the answer. He can just do the flying himself, right? And then people are like, wow, you've blown my mind. I didn't know you could do that. And then somebody has to go in and do it themselves, and they have to have some minimum level of skill. With code, it can often be a problem, because if you do that, then people will be like, oh, let's just use his code. And then that might be what Aaron likes to call learning theft, right? Where it's like, you give too much, and then all of a sudden everybody will never remember it, and they'll come back to the same problem again and get stuck again. And so I like but I've definitely had this where I was talking to a group of Unity developers the other day, and they're like, oh yeah, we have all these private methods, we can't write unit tests around them. And I'm like, oh, well, here's how we'd use reflection, and you can call those private methods, but you should only do that in your tests. And there's some nuance there, because Unity has these weird inheritance problems. But The point is like no one even thought it was possible to do. And so and so it's just like oh, you can do that, and then all of a sudden a world of possibilities is opened. And people willing to struggle again. So I think that's where it's like somebody will be about to give up on a path, and the right path, right? They'll be about to give up on the right path, and just that little knowledge that like someone else has done it, is like super important. And I guess that makes me think about, we have prioritization on our teams, and we talk about known unknowns and unknown unknowns. And so you get a known unknown, and we often talk about known unknowns and solving them with spikes. But I think a really interesting thing is that I've clarified to people in the past was like, you have known unknowns of you don't know the syntax, right? You have known unknowns of like you've never done it before, but somebody in the department has done it before. You have known unknowns of the company's never done it before, but another company has done it before. And like that's almost where Google is right now with ChatGPT and Bard, right? It's like we know OpenAI did it, and we know we can do it. And so they've made like a cultural push or whatever, a paradigm shift to then really push on that technology. And then you finally have like we don't know how to do it, and we don't know of anyone else who's ever known how to do it. And a lot of those things end up just not getting done. And so if you can bring something from the category of I don't know anybody who's done it to I know somebody who's done it, then motivation goes through the roof. So like, I think that's like a big piece of it, where it's like you're about to lose all hope or abandon a path, and so sometimes that's all that's necessary. And I think it's important sometimes to leave it at that. Like, hey, I just showed you that you can do it, so you should continue to try to learn to do it rather than just dumping the answer on them. And I think that's the difference between like the school of hard knocks and learning theft, versus, and there's a piece of grit to it too, because like very gritty people will continue trying to do something that they don't know of anyone having done before, but eventually they will give up once the grittiness runs out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. I think we did an episode that touched on I do, we do, you do, and I'll post on the show notes. But I think if this Maverick style is done where it's just I do and then run away, or yeah. I do, then you're right. Then that can turn into learning theft. And in the context of the movie, that actually wouldn't be good. Like the mission needed 6 planes to be able to pull off what he just did in the training session, right? And so he had to do that. I did it, we do it, and so he taught them how to do it side by side. And then when they needed to do it in the real mission, they could. And so I think you're right. So whether it's coding, unit testing, how to have interpersonal conflict, how to mob in general, like, oh, mobbing, that sounds ridiculous. You might need someone to step in and show like, oh, here's how you do it, and then let's do it together, and then now you can do it, kind of thing. And that was story splitting as well. And one other thing I would tie on is I think if you're looking at it from 1,000-foot level of an organization, it's almost like you need all 3 of these roles, whether formally or informally, because the plot of the movie, I think, lines up what I've seen in the product development world, is that just one operating alone usually doesn't go well. So, so Maverick without Warlock and Iceman, it would have gotten squashed. There were a few points where everyone was trying to squash it, what Maverick was trying to do, and he needed the support from higher up. And Iceman operating alone, there's no one to do it, right? Yeah. Just edicting it doesn't make it happen, right? You need someone showing how to do the good thing at the lower levels, and etc. So yeah. Any other thoughts on this a little tidbit of Top Gun leadership styles?
No, it was a great topic. So good idea, Austin. And yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, yeah. So what if you've seen the movie or not, we'd love to hear your feedback on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and more. And in whether just on the movie in general and what leadership styles, or if you've seen this flavor of leadership styles play out, when it's worked well, when it's worked not worked not so well. And yeah, mob on everyone, and have a good one. Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.